We shall commence this module by discussing about the fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is the way by which the government moderates its level of spending and rates of tax to audit and affect economy. It is the twin approach to monetary policy through which a central bank have an impact on money supply of a nation. Both these policies are used in different combinations to make country move towards economic goals. Now, let us see working of fiscal policy, how it is audited and how it's implemented and how it affects different kind of people in an economy. Prior to Great Depression, which was from September 4, 1929 to the late 1930s or early 1940s, the government's approach to the economy was laissez-faire. Post World War II, it was ascertained that the government will have to gear up for ardent role in the economy to monitor business cycles, unemployment, inflation and money cost. By using an appropriate mix of fiscal and monetary policies dependent upon the political orientations and the philosophy of the influential people at particular point of time, one policy may overpower another. Governments are in position to regulate economic phenomena. After starting this module, you shall be able to know how fiscal policy works, know the factors affecting AD and AS, understand the impact of fiscal policy. Let us now understand how fiscal policy works. Fiscal policy revolves around theories of John Maynard Keynes, British economist, also known as Keynesian economics. The theory lays down that macroeconomic levels of production can be influenced by government, that is via increasing or decreasing tax levels and public spending. This impact controls inflation, which is considered to be robust when it lies between 2 to 3%, pushes employment and is responsible for stable state of money. Fiscal policy is very crucial for economy. For example, in 2012, many people came into state of worry that the fiscal cliff hike in tax rates accompanied by reductions in government spending set to happen in January 2013 would send the US economy back to recession. The US Congress avoided this problem by passing the American Taxpayer Relief Act of 2012 on Jan 1, 2013. First is the Balancing Act. There is a clear separation of the unions and the states' taxation powers in the Constitution. Under Article 246 of the Constitution, there are three lists named as the Union List, the State List and the Concurrent List. In terms of the listed subjects in the Union List including taxes, the exclusionary power to make laws lies with the center. Similarly, the exclusionary power to make laws lies with states. For the taxes listed in the state list, no taxes are listed in the concurrent list, are listed in the union list. The crucial taxes listed in the union list are income tax other than agricultural land, custom duties, excise duties, corporation tax, estate duty and taxes on sale and purchase of goods. 19 taxes are listed in the state list. The important taxes listed in the state list are land revenue, taxes on agriculture income, taxes on land and buildings, taxes on mineral, duties of excise on alcohol, taxes levied on sale and purchase of goods excluding newspapers, taxes on goods and travelers carried by road, taxes on vehicles, taxation on professions, taxes on luxuries including on entertainments, taxes on admission of goods into a local area and taxes on advertisements other than those published in newspapers and broadcast by radio or television. The idea, however, is to find a balance between charging tax rates and public spending. For instance, Lifting a static economy by pushing spending levels or lowering down taxes carries the risk of pushing inflation rates high. This is because an increment in the money amount in the economy followed by an increase in consumer demand can result in a decrement in the money value. Would mean that more money is required to get something which has not changed in value. Let's suppose that an economy is moving slowly. Unemployment levels are high, consumer spending has been reduced and businesses are not able to make considerable profits. A government decides to push the economy by reducing taxation, giving consumers more money to spend. On the other hand, increasing government spending in the form of buying services from the market, such as building roads or schools. By making payment for such services, the government is able to create jobs and wages that are stirred into the economy. Injecting money into the economy by reducing taxation and augmenting government spending is also known as pump priming. In the meantime, overall unemployment levels will fall. With more money in the economy and fewer taxes to pay, consumer demand for goods and services increases. This in turn revitalizes businesses and turn around the cycle from static to active. If, however, process has no reins, the push in the economic productivity can cross a very fine line and result into huge amount of money in the market. This overflow of money supply decreases money value accompanied by rise in prices because of the increase in demand for consumer products. Hence, inflation go beyond the reasonable level. For the same reason, fine-tuning the economy through fiscal policy exclusively can be a complex task if not impossible. Way to attain economic goals. If not carefully audited, the line between a productive economy and one influenced by inflation can be easily blurred. Second is aggregate demand. The total amount of goods and services demanded in the economy at a given overall price level and in a given time period. It is depicted by the aggregate demand curve, which explains the relationship between price levels and the quantity of output that firms want to provide. Normally, the relationship between aggregate demand and the price level is negative, which is also known as total spending. Thirdly, breaking down aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is the demand for the gross domestic product (GDP) of a country and is depicted by this formula. Aggregate demand AD is equal to C plus I plus G plus in bracket X minus M, where C is equal to consumers' expenditures on goods and services, I is equal to investment spending by companies on capital goods, G is equal to government expenditures on publicly provided goods and services, X is equal to exports of goods and services, M is equal to imports of goods and services. Moving on to discuss the ADAS model. Aggregate supply is the total amount of goods and services in the economy available at all available price levels. Aggregate demand is the amount of goods and services in the economy that will be purchased at all available price levels. In an economy, as the prices of most goods and services change, the price level changes and individuals and businesses change how much they buy. The aggregate supply curve on a graph shows the relationship between prices and output supplied, whereas the aggregate demand curve shows relationship between price and real GDP demanded. When aggregate supply AS curve and aggregate demand AD curve are put together, it shows the AS-AD equilibrium in the economy. The intersection of the AS and AD1 curves indicated an equilibrium price level of P1 and an equilibrium real GDP of Q1. Any shift in aggregate supply or aggregate demand has an impact on the real GDP and the price level. Short run macroeconomic equilibrium occurs when the quantity of GDP demanded is equated to quantity supplied, which is where the AD and the short-term SAS curves intersect. The price level adjusts to achieve equilibrium. Short-run equilibrium on a general basis does not occur at full employment. Long-run macroeconomic equilibrium occurs when real GDP equals potential GDP so that the economy is on the long-term AS curve LAS as shown in figure. The AS-AD framework shows economy's reaction to a rise in aggregate demand. In the short run, the AD curve shifts to the right and the equilibrium moves along the initial SAS curve. Real GDP increases and the price level rises. The money wage rate rises as a result of higher prices, and the SAS curve shifts leftward, decreasing real GDP and further raising the price level. In the long run, the SAS curve shifts leftward enough so that real GDP returns to potential GDP. Further adjustments refrain. Real GDP is at potential GDP and the price level is permanently higher than before the increase in aggregate demand. The AD-AS model also depicts how the economy reacts to a decrease in aggregate supply. The SAS curve shifts leftward, real GDP decreases and the price level rises. A period of time with combined recession and inflation is known as stagflation. Next, we shall discuss the factors that affect AS and AD. There are multiple activities that can cause shifts in the AS and AD curves. The following are factors that can shake the aggregate supply. The increase in nominal wages shifts AS to the left because cost of production increases, which lowers profit. The increase in prices of other inputs into manufacturing of products also shifts AS to the left because production cost increase. For example, the rise in the price of oil or electricity would increase cost for producers and lower their profits, so they produce less. The usage of technology is able to shift the AS to the right because it increases the productivity. As a result, firms can produce more output with the same amount of resources. Increases in efficiency. An example is computers. Similarly, there are factors that can cause changes in the AD curve as well, such as when there is an increase in the country's exchange rate, the net exports decrease and aggregate expenditure also takes a dip, resulting in shifting the AD curve to the left. Increased income of the citizens boosts them to spend more, eventually causing a rightward shift. Foreign income also has a significant impact on the aggregate demand. When foreign income increases, exports will increase, causing the curve to shift to the right as a result of increased aggregate demand. The AD-AS framework segregates the economy into two parts, the demand side and the supply side, and delve into their interaction using accounting identities, equilibrium conditions, and behavioral and institutional equations. The demand side synchronizes factors relating to the goods demand and the assets demand and supply. The supply side explores factors which are related to output and pricing decisions of producers and factor markets. The framework makes sure that neither demand nor supply side factors are ignored on analytical front and that macroeconomic results are a function of interaction between the different markets. This model is highly simplified. In flexibility terms, it could be compared to ISLM. It can be unequivocally extended to contract with stochastic shocks and open economy issues. However, where this model does fail badly is in terms of accuracy. The basic assumption relating to monetary policy is that the authorities fix money stock value. This results into the unattractive feature that the equilibrium is one in which the price level has converged on a constant value. There are other problems as well with the ADAS model than the assumption of a fixed money stock. Colander 1995 indicated that the model comprised of two contradictory accounts of aggregate supply. Assumption of fixed price multiplier theory is taken in the derivation of aggregate demand curve, while in the derivation of aggregate supply curve, the underlying assumption is one in which supply expands to the point at which marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Now, we will discuss the effect of fiscal policy. In pursuing expansionary fiscal policy, the government either increases spending or reduces taxes or does a mix of both. As it has been specified, rise in the government spending shifts the AD curve to the right. Reduction in taxes means more disposable income in hand of consumer and so can purchase more. This as well shifts the AD curve to the right. Moreover, mix of both increased government spending and reduced taxes can be used for shifting the AD curve to the right. Size of the spending multiplier determines the extent of the shift in the AD curve as result of government spending, while AD's curve shift as a result of tax cut is dependent upon the size of the tax multiplier. The government uses a contractionary fiscal policy when there is a demand pull inflation. It also facilitates in paying off unwanted debt. In the case of contractionary fiscal policy, the government either decreases spending or raises taxes or does a mix of the two. Less money rotation in the market leads to decline in the output, which means reduced GDP. The spending by consumer also reduces as there is insignificant amount of money to spend. AD curve is shifted to the left as a result of contractionary fiscal policy. If the tax revenues exceed government spending, then this type of policy results into budget surplus. Unfortunately, the fiscal policy does not impact everyone in the same way. Dependent upon the political orientations and goals of the policy makers, a tax cut could impact middle class that is generally considered as the largest economic group. In the times when economic activity is on the decline and taxation on the rise, the middle class might pay taxes exceeding the taxes paid by upper class. On the same lines, when a government is trying to adjust its spending levels, its policy have an impact on only a specific group of people. A proposal to build a new bridge, for example, will give work and more income to hundreds of construction workers. A proposal to spend money on building a new space shuttle, on the other hand, is gainful only for a small, specialized pool of experts, which will not do much to increase aggregate employment levels. Now, we will summarize what we have discussed in this module. In this module, we have studied the importance of fiscal policy. We have studied how the fiscal policy works. We have seen how there is a need to balance the revenue side tax with the expenditure side public spending. We have then examined the factors that influence aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Finally, we have studied the impact of fiscal policy on the price level and output.